Okay, so here we have the David Pakman show, and he tries to bring out some points by using the statistics, but he doesn't go into in depth as to why the statistics are the way that they are. So I'll let him go, and then I'll give you a little bit more after this.
Conservative arguments in favor of more guns in more places have again been surfacing after the horrible shooting in Roseburg, Oregon at Umpqua Community College. These arguments are ones you're probably pretty familiar with at this point. More guns make people safer because they scare would-be perpetrators, and also they allow good guys with guns, as described by the NRA, to shoot bad guys with guns in the middle of a violent incident. And this perspective was best represented, and by best I don't mean in a way that I respect, but the sort of microcosm of this idea was presented by the NRA's Wayne LaPierre in a speech shortly after the Sandy Hook, Connecticut shooting, where he was talking about how great it would be to arm teachers, saying the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. And I quickly mentioned a couple of days ago in the wake of the Roseburg, Oregon shooting that there are statistics about active shooter scenarios and so-called good guys with guns. As a reminder, an FBI analysis of 160 active shooter situations from 2000 to 2013 showed that only one of those 160 was stopped by a civilian concealed carry licensee. He happened to be a U.S. Marine. 4 were stopped by armed...
Okay, now, he has to point out the fact that the guy was a U.S. Marine, indicating that somehow the concealed carry holder was somehow more experienced with a firearm than you or I. Okay, now Marines train with various weapons. Does that mean that they're better trained for certain situations? Of course. Okay, I'm not going to deny that. But there's things that he's not going to tell you about these specific situations. The Marine was able, in the one shooting situation he pointed out, the Marine was able to acquire 3 things and do it safely. Target, behind target, field of fire. Okay? Those 3 things are key to every shooting situation. Not every situation is going to be perfect. It's not going to be you're 15 yards from the active shooter, you're armed with a 9mm pistol, and the shooter's armed with a 9mm pistol. You've got range time, the shooter doesn't. It's not going to be like that. That situation's not going to exist in any of the shootings you examine. You're going to see that the bad guy with a gun had an assault rifle, and assault rifle would be a bad term here. A high capacity magazine rifle that is semi-automatic. That is what needs to be presented here, because there's no real such thing as an assault rifle. Okay? Now, I don't care how many times the left tries to spin that. That's just a fact.
Guards, 2 by off-duty police officers.
Okay, the 4 incidents that were stopped by armed guards, well, they went to a location where there were armed guards. I mean, that was okay. They thought they had a soft target, and there were armed guards there. Okay, pure and simple. And the armed guards, they do have training. They are trained with their weapons. I don't know. I've been an armed security officer.
And 21 by civilians who were not armed.
Okay. And in that case, you had a mass rush on the gunman. You didn't have anything else, and they commonly caught him while he was switching rounds or reloading.
Let's dig more deeply into this. A recent analysis of FBI data found, as reported in the Washington Post, that for every lethal justified shooting, so in other words, what we might call colloquially a good guy with a gun scenario, guns were responsible for 34 murders, 78 suicides, and 2 accidental deaths. The vast majority of the 114 bad guy deaths for each good guy death could be prevented with some basic gun control measures.
Okay, and exactly what are those measures? Because you never get into it.
Acting like good guys with guns all throughout, intermingled in culture and society. Acting like those are the main group of people that need to be protected by having relaxed gun laws is ridiculous because, number one, as we've talked about, even restrictive gun laws still allow, and I'm borrowing the term from the NRA, good guys with guns to obtain guns.
Okay, but you only talk about the obtaining of guns. Do you mean the carry for personal protection outside of the home? Or do you mean the personal protection inside the home? You know, that's the question. Okay, are you going to restrict all good guys from carrying outside of the home? That's where you're headed.
That's number one. And number two, the numbers confirm that the good guy with a gun scenarios are so overwhelmingly, insurmountably dwarfed in quantity by people dying with accidental shootings, people using guns.
Okay, well, let's look at it. Florida has concealed carry. Okay? Nobody at the Impulse nightclub was carrying a gun. Okay? Texas has open and concealed carry. Nobody at the church last week, or what was it, almost 2 weeks ago, was carrying a gun. In Garland at the Draw Muhammad contest in Garland, Texas, a couple of years back, there was a police officer that stopped those two guys. Right? You know, again, you're trying to compare apples and oranges here, and I'm sorry to tell you, you're trying to say we need common sense gun control, which means nobody gets to carry outside of their home. You know, in the Texas shooting that occurred just a couple of weeks ago at that church, it took a good guy with a gun to stop the bad guy with a gun. Okay? No ifs, ands, or buts. It was a good guy with a gun and probably half a mag of ammunition. And he was, you know, the good guy with a half a magazine of ammunition, trained, certified NRA gun instructor, stop the bad guy.
Guns for suicides, people choosing, as we saw, by the way, at Umpqua Community College, there was an armed concealed carry civilian there, and fortunately he realized, if I start shooting, that's not going to improve the situation.
No, he never could get target acquisition at safety. It was a mass chaos situation. This is where he's being deceptive. This is where David Pakman is being deceptive about this. The shooter could, or the CHL holder that was armed couldn't get safe target acquisition. He had people running in front of him, between him and the shooter. Okay, in that situation, no trained CHL holder is going to shoot. He's not going to open fire against a bad guy for risk of hitting an innocent civilian.
And thinking back to the Aurora, Colorado movie theater shooting, it becomes obvious why these good guy with a gun scenarios are not what the NRA would like you to believe.
Okay, now here's where I draw the argument. Again, you're in a mass chaos situation. Dark movie theater, target acquisition is next to impossible. Sight alignment, unless you've got specialized Tragicon night sights on your pistol. Again, you know, you still have mass chaos. You still have people moving around. You can't tell where the shooter's at. You know, Mr. Pakman, if you never take a gun course, and I pray that you do, I pray that you understand these things. I pray that you get trained in these things. Okay? There are very, very specific rules of engagement that civilians with firearms, in the event of a shooter, an active shooter, they have to follow. Target acquisition, general safety of the public, line of fire, post line of fire, meaning beyond the target, because your bullets are probably going to go through, especially if you're using those jacketed point or those full metal jacket 40 cals there, and I can tell those are 40 caliber bullets. I can tell that's a 40 caliber pistol there. And it looks like a SIG 226. I used to have one. I miss that gun. I can tell that you probably never shot a gun. Okay, I would hope that you would go and get training for it.
Dark theater. Shooting starts. You've identified that a bad guy with a gun is shooting. You take out your gun. Who do you shoot in the dark theater? Do you shoot in the direction that the gunshot came from? Do you realize the amount of deafening echo there would be when firing a gun in a movie theater? How do you even know what direction to fire in? You hear a bullet ricochet to your right. Do you fire in that direction? And what if there are 2 or 3 good guys with guns in the movie theater, and all of a sudden they start shooting? You think one of them is the bad guy with the gun, and you kill one of these supposed responsible concealed carry gun owners. So the good guy with a gun scenarios essentially don't exist. A number of experts in this have spoken out. Steve Benson, for example, who's a Vietnam veteran and former Navy SEAL, he has trained elite troops, and he said to The Nation magazine, in chaotic situations, the first thing you know is the S has hit the fan, and you don't know where the fan is. And unless it's constantly drilled into you, it's very hard to maintain discipline in those situations.
And with that, I agree with the Navy SEAL. But here's the thing, is that most concealed handgun owners consistently train at the range. They consistently train in live fire exercises. They train in controlled environs. Okay, so that when the S does hit the fan, as you say, they're actually hitting the fan blade and not a windswept object. Okay. Again, in those situations, we are trained. We are trained to react specifically. Okay. As a security officer, I'm trained a specific way. As a CHL holder, I'm trained a specific way. Can I merge those two together? No. Okay. When I'm in civilian clothes, my first thought is my family, their safety. Okay. Not gunshots, grab gun. And every CHL holder will tell you safety first. Okay. Then maybe stop the threat. Okay. But you learn these things as you go through a CHL class.
Never mind the immediate hit of adrenaline and the problem that in that state of mind, conscious thought shuts down because you've been taken over by your nervous system. This is exactly what we've been talking about. This is absolutely what we've been talking about. The numbers confirm that having a firearm makes a person twice as likely to be killed and 3 times as likely to commit suicide. And you might say, well, you're going to...
You know, here's the thing, is that this statistic here is a little bit deceptive, okay? And this is why it's deceptive is because there are markers out there that indicate a level or threat of suicide to an individual. you know, if they're not seeing a professional psychologist, I'm going to guarantee you they acquire the gun within a few days of their actual committing the suicide. That can't really be helped unless they're seeing a licensed psychologist, and in which case a psychologist can put a hold on them buying a firearm. Okay? At least until the imminent threat of themselves is over. Okay? Or at least that's the way it should be. But you don't address this.
You could get killed with a baseball bat you have to defend yourself as easily as you could a gun. Obviously you couldn't. You could say, if you're going to commit suicide, you're going to do it whether or not you have a gun. No, that actually has been shown not to be true.
Actually, it has been shown to be true. You know, I can point to Facebook Live and the tragedies that have unfolded there. But you won't be honest and admit those, and you won't be honest and show those.
Not to mention that the likelihood that you succeed is also going to be far lower if you don't have access to a gun. So on the whole, aside from any particular anecdotal instances you might be able to talk about, and I'm sure I'll get emails from people saying, but David, Joe in some place, who even cares where, was able to defend himself with a gun. That's fine, but what the data tells us is that for every single one of those incidents, there are 34 incidents that don't go well, plus 78 suicides and who knows what else. So make the case to me that in spite of all the data, it still makes sense to support this good guy with a gun ideology. Try to make that case in spite of what the data actually tells us.
Okay, well, let's go by the data then. Let's go by the data, the fact that shows that in states with heavier gun restrictions and restrictive states, restrictive cities such as Chicago, have the highest murder rate in the nation. Let's go that route. Let's take a look at Texas, one of the lowest. Okay. Let's take a deeper look at Texas. Let's take a look at their crime rate. It's dropped since they initiated the CHL licensing. It's dropped since they've initiated open carry. Okay. Look at St. Louis. Look at Kansas City. Another carry, conceal, or open carry state. Again, there's the case. The crime rates drop in states where the CHLs are available. Let's be honest about the crime statistic that goes along with that. Okay? Let's quit carrying other false narratives, and let's quit using states that have hyper-restrictive gun laws. And let's take a deeper look at the suicide rates, and let's find out what caused the suicides. Let's find out the underlying cause of the suicide, because the gun wasn't the underlying cause. Be honest about it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Repentant Conservative. I greatly appreciate you watching. Like, subscribe, y'all know the drill. And we'll catch you down the log. 7 threes, everybody.